it's me, and today I'm here with a little bit of a different setup, but that's because I'm losing daylight. I had a lot of things to do today before I was able to get to filming, so I'm losing daylight. My laptop is dying, so we're doing a casual wrap up. That's what we're doing. Also because I only have 2 books physically that I read this month, so yeah. The end of November was rough. That's all I have to say. I also stopped vlogging halfway through November because it just was way too busy and I just couldn't keep up. And yeah, here we are. It's another one of those months where looking at the total amount of books I ended up reading at the end of the month, I shouldn't have done a mid-month wrap-up, but so much happened this month and I'm so glad I did a mid-month wrap-up because I have a hard time remembering what I even read in the beginning of the month. Let's just begin with stats. In total, I read 8 books in the month of November, which amounted to 3,200 pages, and I only read 2 books that I own. That number should definitely go up. Then for the TBR challenges, I read 3 books out of my comfort zone, 2 sequels, 1 new book, and 1 TBR vet. Then for star ratings, I have 1 2-star, 3 3-stars, and 4 4-stars, which, it's not perfect. I would love a 5-star, but it's good. And for authors, I read 4 books by female authors, 3 books by male authors, and 1 book that was an anthology, so that had a collection of all different kinds of authors. Okay, so excuse me looking like a mess, I know, but I completely forgot to talk about the age ranges. So I read 5 young adult novels in the month of November and 3 adult. I ended up reading 6 fantasy books, 1 non-fiction, and 1 sci-fi, which again I want to read more different genres over the month. So not the best month, but honestly in a month where I'm barely reading, I take all I can get. For my mid-month wrap-up, just quickly going over the book, I have Sleeper in a Spindle by Neil Gaiman and illustrated by Chris Riddell. Then I have Insectum by Lee Sierra and Peter Felix. I have A Universe of Wishes edited by Daniel Clayton, Arch Enemies by Marissa Meyer, and Supernova by Marissa Meyer. That's it. I didn't write the star ratings out of my notes, so that's why I didn't tell you, but go watch that video instead of this one, because I promise you it's more interesting. I still have 3 books left to talk to you about today, so let's do that. The first book I read since the middle of the month is The Love Interest by Cale, Dietrich, which I gave 2 out of 5 stars. This book takes place a near futuristic world, kinda, yeah, because they have more in-depth technology, so near futuristic world in which there's this organization, and that organization kind of keeps a tab on every person they deem is going to be an important person in the future. For example, in this novel, they have been keeping track of this girl who shows from very early age showed a very high intelligence and has been inventing things all her life, and they assume she's gonna be a big person in her industry in the future. So they keep tabs on her, and then when that person that they're keeping tabs on are getting to an age that they are getting interested in romance and being in relationships, they send out 2 love interests, and the point of that is that both of those love interests end up competing for that person's love, and then basically end up being a spy their entire life. This story follows a character who is one of the love interests. He is deemed a nice, which means he's the good boy next door, usually childhood friend type person in her life, and then he has to compete against the bad, which is the typical bad boy character, and he ends up actually falling for the other person that is a love interest rather than the human he's supposed to be falling for. And yeah, I read this on script. I feel this trope, the love triangle trope, is very overdone, and something I've wanted to be seen done with it is that, the original sides of the love triangles end up falling for each other rather than, picking the original person. Oh, I've been looking for that for so long. And then when this book came out, I was like, oh my god, it sounds perfect. Then I heard a lot of negative reviews on it, and I was like, maybe not for me. But then I actually read it and I really enjoyed it, and also just noticed that in my notes I wrote it down as a 3-star, but it's definitely a 4-star. I don't know why I wrote that down like that. I really enjoyed it. Not perfect at all. I really get the criticisms people have of this book because it is very surface level when it comes to explaining the love interests type deal and company, and I would have liked a little bit more from that, but also at the same time, I just flew through this book. I had such a great time reading this. I had so much fun. I really liked the characters. I really was invested in them. I really liked the like friends they also made along the way, and I had so much fun reading it, and I also just really felt the romance, felt the chemistry between the two characters, really liked that. I also liked the girl that they ended up having to like compete for in a way. I don't know, I it's so much fun reading this book. That's really all I can say about it. And I think it managed to play with tropes very well, because kind of like this whole organization is like based on your typical like book tropes, like the bad boy, the good guy, the love triangle. It's just like it's based on trope on trope on trope on trope on trope. And just the way this book like takes pills on that and kind of like mocks it in a way is just so much fun. And I had such a great time actually reading this book. The next book is kind of the opposite. And that's Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse, which I give 2 out of 5 stars. I gotta get this from that gallery, but I read it super late. I'm so sorry. This book has a very vague synopsis, so I'm also gonna be very vague because I don't want to spoil anything for you accidentally. But basically, this is a fantasy novel which is based on like pre-Columbian societies, and throughout this book we're counting down to the winter solstice, which is usually like this big important moment within this religion. But this year on the winter solstice there's also an eclipse, and the sun priest has prophesied that something bad is gonna happen on that day, and we follow that sun priest as well as a girl with a teak who is it's like half human, half magical creature, and it is very reminiscent of like Siren's mythology, but it's different, but it's very similar to that. But I can explain to what a teak is. And she is the captain on the ship which is transporting a blind man, and this man is described as harmless, but in a way that the synopsis the girl knows, and when a man is described as harmless, he ends up being the enemy, and can kind of discuss on that, but like he plays a role into that doom scenario, I guess. And yeah, that's the vagueness of the synopsis. I don't have much more to say about it. But I ended up, because I read it later than when I was supposed to, I ended up seeing a lot of reviews already for this book. Every review I've seen of it, like, loves it, like, absolutely adores this book. It's like the best book ever. And like, I didn't like get that from this book. I don't know, it just didn't work for me. I didn't click with it at all. And I don't think that's like the book's fault at all, because honestly I can't think of any flaw, because the characters are very well written. I really like the world and how that's written. The countdown really works very well, and it's kind of like that throughout the entire book you have this anticipation. You kind of have like these two perspectives of, well, you have three perspectives, you have multiple perspectives, but you have the kind of the side of like the sun priest and them like preparing for like this doom scenario and that not wanting to happen, and then we follow like this Teak and this guy who are actually just like wanting to make this happen in a way. It's very interesting to see like both of the sides of preventing this doom scenario, and like one like wanting to create this doom scenario, not seen as a doom scenario but as something good. So that was very interesting to see, and like I said, I really like the characters, I like the characters' dynamics. I especially really loved the Teak character. I forgot her name because I'm terrible with names, but I really liked her and I liked following her. I don't know, I just also like the world, and I think this book was very well written. I will definitely pick up other books by Rebecca Roanhorse. The story was interesting, and I just didn't connect with it. I didn't feel pulled into the story at all. I felt so distant from everything happening, and I don't know. I don't know what it was. I can't describe it. But I hate the fact that I didn't love this as much as everyone else does. Then another beloved book that I didn't like, and this one I have valid reasons for, and that's Pen and Silver by Naomi Novik, which I give 2 to 5 stars. This book follows. This is also a very like difficult synopsis. So this starts off with Miriam, who is the daughter of a money loaner. I think that's her English name for it. I'm sorry, I read this in Dutch. She's the daughter and granddaughter of money loaners, so she comes from a family of money loaners. And her father isn't that great at it. He's not great at collecting the money, and he lets himself be pushed over by his loaners. So one day, well, the winter is especially bad, Miriam just decides to go out herself and just like do her father's job for them, because like their family is just not surviving and she hates it. So after that she ends up being very successful and taking over the job, and she kind of gets known as like the girl who can turn silver into gold through like her business. and that ends up grabbing the attention of the elf king that has been like threatening their lands, and the elf king basically drops off money at the door and is like, changes into gold by the next time I come over, and she has to do it 3 times and then like she gets something. It's a Wimple Still's gonna be telling. But we also follow 2 other characters. We also follow Wanda, who is the help for Miriam. When things get going, she ends up hiring Wanda as a help because Wanda's father was one of the loners of Miriam, and like her father can't pay her back, so instead he sent like Miriam to work for he sent Wanda to work for Miriam. She comes from a very abusive household, and she has 2 brothers who also end up playing a part in this book. And then also we end up following a girl whose name I forgot. I'm so sorry. Her name isn't mentioned in the synopsis, but I forgot her name. And we also follow another girl who is the daughter to like one of like the noblemen. Like, she isn't really seen as anything special, but then in Miriam's quest to like turn the silver into gold, she ends up like making jewels of like these silvers from the elf realm, and those end up being in the possession of like this girl, and that makes the Tsar really interested in her, and they end up getting married. But the Tsar also isn't who he seems to be, and get very confusing, which is the main reason I didn't like this book, because I just feel like there were too many perspectives in this book. At the start we started off with just Miriam, and then a little bit into it Wanda gets introduced, and a little bit farther into this daughter from the nobleman get introduced. And you think like, oh, you have all the perspectives, that's all the synopsis mentioned. Okay, I can keep track of this somehow. But then they just like keep adding perspectives, and I'm confused, because nowhere in this book does it ever indicate when a perspective switch happens and what character perspective is switched to. You know, normally when there's like a perspective switch, it'll have just like the character's name at the top of it or like something. Let's just didn't have that. I was just so confused. And it also was told in first person. Like a lot of books do this, where they switch between perspectives constantly, but are told in third person. And I have not, like, that's so easy to keep track of because their name is constantly mentioned, so like you get it. Like, this was all in first person, so like their name barely got mentioned at all in their perspective, and I was just like, who are you? And what are we doing here? Because I'm confused. And that was such a big part of why I didn't like this book at all, because just trying to figure out whose perspective I was reading from each and every sentence was very tiresome and very confusing, and it took me out of the story and just kept me from being like fully invested in it. And it's just not something I liked. Then on top of that, this is such a slow book. Like, I enjoy slow books. I really love books that are just like a super slow build and then just like have their basic payoff. It doesn't necessarily mean that the end is like very action packed. It just means it has a great payoff. But this was just too slow. I was so bored with the entirety of the novel, and I feel like if you condense this to like the action points, you get like a 20-page novella or like something, because almost nothing happens in this book. And then the ending also just wasn't worth it. The ending was very convoluted, very confusing, and I wasn't a fan of it. So yeah, that was my wrap up. I really hope you enjoyed, and I was gonna film more videos today, but I completely lost daylight. I think my laptop is totally illuminating most of my face. That's like the biggest light source right now. So I don't think it's a smart idea to film more. Whoops. But then I have to squeeze it in somewhere else this week. I don't have enough time, so it's gonna be busy. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of these books, if you read any of them, as well as some of the books you read in the month of November. I guess I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.